Welcome to Football with Cheese. Happy Tuesday, day 2 of NFL free agency. There's a lot to discuss. I'm probably going to make at least 2, maybe 3 videos today. Who knows? Maybe more than that if the crazy happens. I do have a video coming with the Texans trading Laremy Tunsil to Washington. Why they did what they did, who I think won that trade. But in this video, I want to go over grading and how different it can be depending on where you look and how you got to be careful as a fan. But real quick, I was doing research and notes for this video, and I have NFL Network on, mainly for the breaking news, for Ian Rappaport or Tom Pellisario breaking news. I'm not watching it for the analysis because it's usually bad. They have a lot of idiots on there. And it just so happened they mentioned the Packers. And the guy on there, I don't know his name, he says this to Stacey Dales. So you know the Packers well, and then he asks the question. Stacey Dales, if you don't know, is a former women's basketball player. She does sideline reporting. She's not supposed to be doing analysis because she doesn't know the Packers well. More on that in a second. Anyways, she says that she was perplexed or something like that, that's not verbatim, by the Packers' moves, saying they needed a wide receiver and an edge rusher, and basically they should have addressed those needs. Okay. She doesn't know the Packers well, like I said. Packers do not go out and sign wide receivers to free agent contracts. They don't go outside the organization. For the last probably 30 years, they draft receivers, develop them usually in the second and third rounds. And that's what they do with receiver. And then if they want to keep them, they re-sign them or they just let them go. Packers have done that and it's worked for 30 years. They have drafted one receiver in the first round probably since Sterling Sharp was drafted in the late 80s. This is what they do. They do not go outside and sign wide receiver free agents. And they don't go out and sign guys 31, 32 years old because their play usually dips, more likely to get hurt. It wasn't a good wide receiver free agent class. What are they going to do? Go after Chris Godwin coming off a dislocated ankle? And he wasn't going to come to Green Bay. He wanted to re-sign in Tampa. Who were they going to get? If they need a receiver, like a number one receiver, like people say they need, that was pretty much it. Maybe they go after Cooper Kupp if he's released, but I still doubt that. Someone's going to pay Cooper Kupp more than Green Bay will. Stacey Dales should not be doing analysis because she has no clue. The Packers needed interior offensive line help. We've talked about it multiple times on this channel. They have upgraded their offensive line. It's better. Center got better, moving Elton Jenkins to center. And signing Aaron Banks makes their run blocking better. He's an underrated player. Banks, when he's healthy, he can dominate. I watched some film on him last night. There was a game against the Cardinals. It's a Cardinals defensive line, but still dominated the game. But against the Chiefs, he was dominating. So when he's healthy, he can be really good. He's not always healthy. If you look up his grade on one of the sites that does grades, it's not always going to look great because they grade you on every play, every game. But more on that in a second. And then the Packers signed Nate Hobbs, a corner. They needed a corner bad. Corner was maybe their biggest need, believe it or not. She didn't mention that. And it's not a strong offensive line draft, and it's maybe an average corner draft. Stacey Dales wanted the Packers to get an edge rusher. Very strong edge rusher draft. She didn't mention that. She has no clue. She should go back to Canada where she's from, make babies, go to PTA meetings, make sandwiches. Anyway, let's move on. So, as far as grading in general, PFF, Pro Football Focus, is the most popular one. But there's a bunch of websites that grade each player. And it's a tool for the fans who want to know how good their players are. Because you just watch the game, you're watching the ball. You'll see what the quarterback does, the wide receivers do, running back. It's just a tool for fans. And it's taken off. It's really popular. But here's the problem with it. Let me give you an example. I'm going to pull this up here. Nate Hobbs, who the Packers signed, cornerback, who's a good fit for their system, Bit of a surprise signing. We'll see if it works out. According to Sports Info Solutions, Hobbs allowed a completion percentage of 42.9% last year, sixth best among corners. Next Gen Stats charged him with a 55.8% completion rate. Okay. PFF, Pro Football Focus, charged him with a 67.4% completion rate given up, which ranks 66th. So Sports Info Solutions had him as the sixth best corner in completion percentage. Pro Football Focus had him 66th. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, so if you don't know what the grading system is, how they do it, I don't know so much about Sports Info Solutions or Next Gen Stats. But I'll say this. PFF, I have done research on because they're the most popular. They grade you on every single play, what you do, even if what you do doesn't matter. Every single play. And I don't like the grading on defense. I don't think it's a good judge. To me, the best position is probably offensive line, most accurate. But even then, they get grading wrong. They hate Tucker Kraft for some reason, the tight end for the Packers. There's some games where he makes 5 or 6 unbelievable blocks to free Josh Jacobs, and they'll give him a blocking grade of 57 when it should be like 79 or 83 or something like that. Maybe because 1 or 2 blocks he didn't do the best, so they just knock the grade down. So Tucker Kraft, when he blocks, he doesn't try to pancake you. He tries to slow you down long enough to spring Josh Jacobs. And that's done on purpose. You're less likely to miss a block doing that. That's all the Packers probably want him to do. And Pro Football Focus does not like that for some reason. They also do a terrible job on defensive line, in my opinion. They're obsessed with pressure rate. But if the pressure doesn't result in a sack or an incompletion or interception, then it's not effective. They care less about sacks. Yeah, I get it. Sometimes you get coverage sacks or you luck into one. Someone else forced them into you. So sack isn't the best stat to determine the best edge rusher, but it's still important. Getting him on the ground is really important. It's much more important than forcing an incompletion or a scramble or a throwaway. So they're a little obsessed with pressure rate. They should focus more on how the pressure results in the play. Does it result in a negative play, an interception, a sack, an incompletion on 3rd and 10 that forces a punt? And like I said, they grade you on every single play. Defensive tackles, especially on long drives, have to take plays off at times, especially if you play over 50 snaps. If you're a 320-pound defensive tackle, you can't give all that effort on every play. If you play 50 snaps a game, maybe a 1st and 10 on the 7th play of the drive, you don't work as hard, you take a little breather. It's just going to happen. All defensive tackles do it. So I don't like how they grade defensive tackles. A situational guy who plays 15, 20 snaps a game to rush the passer might have a better grade than your starting defensive tackle because he can give all-out effort on every play if he's playing 20 snaps a game as opposed to 50 or 55. So that's the problem with grading. I use PFF for stats, for information, like how many times a guy plays in the slot, how many times he plays on the perimeter, maybe safety, how many times he plays in the box, how many times he plays back, stuff like that. So you got to be careful with grading. Teams have their own grading system, and they have a director of pro personnel, and their job is to watch all these free agents from film, and then they get with the GM, and then they decide, okay, are we going to go after this guy or not? And if they want this free agent, then they'll go over, okay, what's the amount we want to pay him, and what's the maximum amount? Okay, we want to pay him this, but if he says no, maybe we can pay up to there. And you want a guy who's a good fit for your system. And like we said before, you don't want a guy who is as good or worse than a mid-round pick, the guy you can get in the mid-rounds. So be careful with grading. Those 3 grading systems are so different. One of them says he's the 6th best corner, Nate Hobbs, a completion percentage. PFF says it's 66th. I don't know. I read somewhere what they do at PFF is one person grades the game. And it takes 6 to 8 hours. And after the game, they just grade it. So you're relying on one person for that grade, at least at PFF. I could be wrong. I read that somewhere. I did not get that from someone that works there. But one person analyzing it, they could get it wrong. So anyway, one last thing I want to say. I ripped the Giants last year. They made some good moves, I think. Paulson Adebo, 3 years, $54 million, more than I thought he'd get. I thought he might end up in Green Bay instead of Hobbs, but that's a lot of money for guys coming off a broken leg. But he's a good corner. He's underrated. And they signed Javon Holland, the safety, 3 years, $45 million. Good move. He's a very good safety. Their secondary is going to be much better. They drafted Tyler Nubin last year as the other safety. They wouldn't need to sign Javon Holland if they had just re-signed Xavier McKinney, but anyway. And in Andrew Phillips, another corner they drafted last year, had a great rookie year. All right, so more videos coming. I need to break down that Laramie Tunsil trade because that shocked me and what I think of it. And I'm probably going to break down like the entire East, like the NFC East and AFC East in one video. Talk about a minute for each team, what they're doing, what they're not doing. So look for those. I'll probably start those tomorrow. So you know what to do. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Comment down below. I love comments because sometimes I just don't think of everything. My friend Coop made a good point about how Sam Darnold, if he plays terrible for Seattle, if it just goes awful, they're going to pick high next year in a good quarterback draft. I appreciate his comment. Love comments. I can't think of everything, guys. I just can't. So also check these videos out. One is what is free agency. The other is breakdown of Sam Darnold, the signing with the Seattle Seahawks. All right. And I will see you in the next video.